So you're planning to buy your first 360 camera or upgrading your old one. Well, there are dozens of 360 cameras out there and it can be confusing to find the best 360 camera for your needs. Well, don't worry, I'm here to help you. My name is Mick. I've been a photographer since 2007 and I've been shooting with 360 cameras since May of 2015. I own 54 360 cameras and I've written over 2,000 articles about 360 cameras. Ask any 360 shooter and they'll tell you. My reviews and tests are the most detailed, in-depth, and reliable in the industry. Whether you're looking for the best image quality, the easiest, or the most affordable, I'll help you find the best 360 camera for your needs. Hey, how you doing? Good to see you again. Today we're going to talk about the best 360 cameras as of November 2018. Here's how this video is organized. First, we're going to look at the top tier cameras, but even these three cameras are not the best for everyone. So we're going to look at other alternatives that may be better for you depending on your situation. Finally, we're going to take a look at upcoming 360 cameras so you're not blindsided into buying a 360 camera when you want something else down the line. Let's get started. Hi, my name is Mick and you're watching 360 Rumors, the resource that 360 shooters trust for in-depth camera reviews and innovative techniques. First, let's talk about top tier cameras. Here are the three 360 cameras that are significantly better than the others. Number 3 is Rylo. So Rylo started out as a middle-of-the-pack camera, but a couple weeks ago, Rylo issued a major update that significantly increased the resolution from 4K to 5.8K. Usually when there's an increase in resolution like that, it's only upscaling. There's no real detail that's been added. But I tested it and I did find that the 5.8K mode is more detailed than the 4K mode. Not only that, but I also tested the Rylo against other 360 cameras and I found that it was one of the most detailed 360 cameras today. It was sharper than the Theta V, the Garmin Verb 360, the Yi 360 VR. Besides its improved detail, the Rylo has amazing stabilization, still one of the best stabilizations as of November 2018. It's okay.
I don't feel tall. What do you mean you feel?
I also love the app. It's got an excellent app, very easy to navigate, very intuitive. It also has an excellent hyperlapse function with motion blur. Now, if you haven't seen it yet, check out my hyperlapse compression here. And finally, Rylo got a desktop app. It works really well. It's full featured. It's got almost everything that the app can do, which is really surprising for a version 1 of a desktop software. Now, the Rylo isn't perfect. It does have some issues. First of all, it's got very limited controls. You don't have live preview. You can't see anything while you're shooting. Second, there's no exposure control. And although it got a desktop app for Mac, there's still no desktop app for Windows, which leaves a lot of people out in the cold. It also doesn't have batch exporting, so you have to stitch each photo and video individually. And its low light performance is still not that great. But despite all these weaknesses, the Rylo is still one of the best 360 cameras as of November 2018. Number 2 in the top tier list is the GoPro Fusion. Fusion is already more than a year old, but as of November 2018, it still has the best video quality among consumer 360 cameras. Now, how do I know that the GoPro Fusion has the best video quality among consumer 360 cameras? That's because I actually ran the tests. I ran 40 tests between the GoPro Fusion and the Insta360 One X. If you haven't seen that video, watch it here. Now, even though the Fusion has the best video quality right now, it's not number 1 on my list because it has an uncertain future. We don't know if there will be further updates to it. Because GoPro basically laid off their 360 development team and the Android software is not quite fully developed yet. It still lacks the overcapture features of its iOS counterpart, and I'm not sure if we'll ever see another update for the Fusion. And that leads us to the number 1 360 camera right now, the Insta360 One X. Insta360 One X has 5.6K video resolution. It's one of the most detailed 360 cameras, second only to the GoPro Fusion. It also has decent dynamic range and amazing stabilization. It also has the best slow motion modes out of any 360 camera. It features 4K 50 FPS and 3K 100 FPS. And to test the Insta360 One X stabilization in slow motion, I went bungee jumping and it was fantastic. And besides its video quality, the Insta360 One X also has the best workflow out of any 360 camera. Not only does it have batch exporting, but can also shoot and stitch in DNG RAW format. And the thing about the Insta360 One X is that it has all these strengths and very few weaknesses. And that's why the Insta360 One X is my #1 recommendation. What about the E360 VR? Last year it had the second best video quality and had great stabilization. And it was the most affordable 5.7k camera. Now this year it moves down to 4th place for video quality, which is still good, but it's probably the slowest stitching 360 camera that I have. And for the same price, I can't think of a good reason to buy the E360 VR when you can get the Insta360 One X instead. Now even though these are the 3 best cameras right now, they might not be the best for you. So here are other 360 cameras that you should look at to see if they're better for your situation. Now, first of all, you might be looking for a more affordable 360 camera. If that's the case, check out Gear 360 2017. This camera is like under $100 right now, but still has 4K video and HDR photos and does have stabilization. But there are 2 issues with the Gear 360 2017. First is compatibility. There are only very few phones that are compatible with the Gear 360 2017. They're like high-end iPhones and high-end Samsung phones. Another issue is workflow. It takes a really long time to stitch, and not only that, but if you want the new stabilization, you gotta stitch it all on your phone. What about the original Gear 360? It doesn't have the 2017 stabilization, so you can't use it as a third-person view camera. So I'd recommend the 2017 instead, unless you only care about 360 photos. Another affordable alternative is the Xiaomi Mi Sphere. Next to the Gear 360 2017, this is the most affordable stabilized 360 camera. One of the things that I like about the Mi Sphere is the workflow. It features batch exporting for videos and photos, including DNG RAW photos. I also like that it's water resistant even without a case. Over the summer, I took the Mi Sphere on a zipline adventure. Check out my in-depth Mi Sphere review. The problem with the Xiaomi Mi Sphere is that the stabilization is not as good as newer 360 cameras. If that's a concern, then you should check out the Insta360 One. Now let's talk about stabilization for a moment. There are several 360 cameras that have built-in stabilization, but they fall roughly into 2 groups. There's some that are really good and some that are not that good. So in the really good category, the Insta360 One is the most affordable one in that group. Want to see just how amazing the Insta360 One stabilization is? Then check out these stabilization torture tests. Now, besides the cost of these top-tier cameras, another issue is that they require a powerful desktop, like one with a dedicated GPU, a dedicated graphics card. Otherwise, then your stitching is going to take really long. Plus, when you edit, you're going to have a problem like editing it and applying overcapture effects. If you don't have a graphics card, one solution is to use these top-tier cameras and render at 4K. Or you can get these 3 cameras: the Xiaomi Mi Sphere, the Insta360 One, or the Rylo Theta V. So all those cameras are 4K cameras. That means that you can use Insta360 Studio, which is free, to process their output and convert them into a non-360 video with overcapture. Here's a tutorial. If you want a 360 camera that's the absolute easiest to use, that you don't need to worry about stitching, there are 2 that I would recommend. First is the Rylo Theta V. The Theta V can take photos and stitch them in camera, so you don't have to worry about stitching at all. It also, mind you, the stitching is optical flow, so it's very smooth. It even has stitching for HDR in camera, so that's the only camera that I know that can do that right now. It also has an in-camera stitching mode for video, so you can set it up so you don't even need to stitch video. One caveat is that when you're using the Theta V in-camera stitching mode for video, there's no stabilization. Instead, if you want to stabilize that in-camera stitched video, you need to process it in the desktop, and it won't take too long, but it does take an additional step. Another camera with in-camera stitching is the Garmin Vert 360. This has in-camera stitching of up to 4K. So you can use this as well. But just like the Theta V, the in-camera stitching mode of the Verb 360 is not stabilized either. So you do need to add stabilization later on in the desktop software. Another option for in-camera stitching is the E360 VR, which can stitch in-camera at 4K without stabilization. As with the Theta and Verb, you can add stabilization on the desktop app. Now let's say you need a 360 camera that's... Now let's say you want a 360 camera for more rugged use. If you want a rugged camera, then you need a replaceable lens. Why? Because if you scratch the lens on a 360 camera, you're definitely going to see that because it has a very short focal length. So you need a 360 camera with a replaceable lens so that if it gets damaged, it won't cost too much to replace it. First is the Garmin Verb 360. This is a very rugged camera. Not only does it have replaceable lenses, but it's also waterproof. And it has this thing called G-Metrics. It's basically, it could put overlays on your 360 video that show like, you know, your speed, your altitudes, really cool things like that. So it's great for like outdoor use if you're into like extreme sports. This is great for you. Now the problem with this is it's $799 and the quality isn't, I mean, it's okay. It's not like super great, even though if it's 5.7K, I would say the quality is not much different from the Xiaomi Mi Sphere, which is like 1/3 the cost of this thing. But like I said, it does have replaceable lenses. Now if the Garmin Verb 360 is a little too expensive, don't worry, there's another alternative. Check out the Kodak Orbit 360. This has a replaceable lens just like the Verb 360. It's also water resistant, although not waterproof. But this year it got a big upgrade that added stabilization. So now this is a stabilized 360 camera. Stabilization is, it's okay. It's in the, you know, second tier stabilization, kind of like the Mi Sphere or Theta V. They also added optical flow stitching to their desktop software. By the way, I have an upcoming review on the Orbit 360. Watch for it. With the replaceable lens on these cameras, you don't have to worry if the lens gets scratched. Now what about underwater use? First of all, there are several 360 cameras that can be used underwater, like the GoPro Fusion, for example. But the problem is, even if you can use them underwater, the stitching is not that great. So for underwater use, you need a 360 camera that has a housing that will allow it to stitch well underwater. You have the Rylo Theta V and the Insta360 1X. Both of these have a special case that's designed for underwater use. In between the two of them, you already know that the 1X has excellent image quality, better than the Theta V. The other thing is that the cost of the underwater case is like almost half for the 1X. Plus, you can also use the dive case, the Insta360 case above water, whereas if you use the Rylo Theta's underwater case above water, the stitching will be not good. What about audio quality? If your top priority is audio quality, here are the cameras I would suggest. Number one is the GoPro Fusion. Why? Because it has spatial audio, and the spatial audio is so easy to use. All you have to do is check a box and you can just bring the footage into Premiere and it will have all 4 spatial audio tracks right there for you. Another camera that's pretty good for spatial audio is the Rylo Theta V. One cool thing with the Theta V is it does have a mic input. It's a 3.5mm jack. It also has spatial audio in the camera, and in addition there's an external microphone that you can attach. It's an accessory. It has great sound. Even the in-camera microphone has great sound as well. Now the only thing is with the Theta V, the audio is not oriented correctly. When you bring it into Premiere, the sound in front of you is kind of like off to the side, so you have to rotate the sound sphere, the spatial audio sound sphere, to match the video. So that's the only thing about the Theta V. I've got a tutorial for doing that, check it out. And for audio, another option is the Kodak Orbit 360. Why? Because it has a mic input jack, and the mic jack here is 2.5mm. So if you're going to use it for vlogging or something and you don't want to have to sync the audio later on, this is another option for you. Another option for audio is the E360 VR, which has an optional USB to microphone jack. And kudos to Yi for making it super cheap. And finally, for audio, another camera to consider is the Samsung Gear 360 2016. It's got great audio quality. I've got samples, you can check them out. Next, let's talk about immersiveness. All of these cameras that I've talked about so far are 2D 360 cameras. And you can view them in a VR headset, but it's kind of like looking at being in the inside of a sphere and looking at wallpaper. Immersive maybe, but it doesn't convince you that you're really in there. If your priority is immersiveness, then these are the three cameras that I would consider. First is the Views. It so far is the only consumer 3D 360 camera on the market with 4K resolution. I have some sample videos if you want to check them out. The issue for me with the Views is the stitching at the corners. It's like not super great. It's kind of noticeable, but maybe for your use it might not be a big deal. Also, the Views is the only 3D 360 camera right now that has an underwater case. Granted, it's like $3,000 or something like that. So it's something to consider. Now, for immersiveness, another camera that you consider is the QCam. So the QCam is a 360 camera that converts into a VR 180 camera. If you're new to VR 180, it's a new format by Google. It's a 3D 180 format that converts into a flat video when you're looking at it without glasses. So VR 180 is much simpler to shoot with than 3D 360. And the other thing is you can be behind the lens, and so you have equipment or you don't want to be seen in the video, you can hide behind the camera. QCam is also the first consumer 360 camera to have depth maps. So you can use the depth map to create 6 DOF effects. Really cool. Check out this video. What about the Lenovo Mirage? It's a VR 180 camera with similar image quality to the QCam. I like that you don't have to stitch its photos or videos, and it's the most affordable option for immersive cameras. So it's a good option, but sometimes you do need stabilization or a third-person view, and that's why I'd recommend the QCam instead if you can afford that. But check out my Lenovo Mirage review and samples. Another camera for immersiveness is the Views XR. This is a hybrid camera that converts from VR 180 to 360, kind of like the QCam, except that the resolution is 5.7k. Not only that, but it also has an optional underwater housing accessory, so you can shoot underwater. Now on paper, the Views XR looks like it might be more detailed than the QCam, but we've already seen examples where a camera with lower specs, like the Fusion, will have more detail than the camera with higher specs, like the Garmin Verb 360. Now, the Views XR is due to be released in December, and if you're interested in it, watch for my review. Now, it's good we're talking about the Views XR because that leads us to our next topic, which are 360 cameras that have yet to be released. So we've already mentioned the Views XR. Another camera that's coming soon should be the Kodak Butterfly camera. It's got no real name yet, but this is another camera that converts from VR 180 to 360. In fact, Kodak was the first to announce it, even before the Views XR, but they take a while to do their thing. So we haven't seen it yet, and I don't expect it anytime soon, to be honest. Speaking of Kodak, another camera they're working on is an 8K camera. Could be the first consumer 8K 360 camera. It's about the size of a hockey puck. I've seen it CES 2017 or 2018 rather, and it's supposed to have 3 lenses, and that's the thing that boggles me, because if it's 8K resolution and we assume that each lens is 4K, well, the math doesn't add up. The 8K is 4 times the resolution of 4K. So even if you assume 0 overlap, I don't see how 3 4K sensors can create 8K resolution. So it could be upscaled. We don't know. Then there's the Xiaomi Mi Sphere 2. They're rumored to be working on it. It's rumored to be 5.7K. Now, I don't know when that's coming out. The engineers at MadV have been kind of quiet about it. So we'll see. It might come out maybe spring or something. I don't know. That's just a speculation there. Another camera that's rumored to be in the works is the next Ricoh Theta, which is supposedly 5.7K. Don't know anything else about it, and we all know it took them several years to come up with a 4K version of the Theta. So I honestly don't expect the 5.7K Theta to be coming out soon either. Now, what about the Yi Horizon? The Yi Horizon, by the way, is a VR 180 camera, kind of like the Lenovo Mirage. It was supposed to be due like sometime in fall of 2018, but we haven't seen the Yi Horizon yet. And meanwhile, the updates in the Yi 360 VR have slowed down to a point that people are beginning to wonder if Yi is still in the game for VR and 360. So it's possible that the Yi Horizon might not be produced. It's also possible that Yi might be waiting for something like the Oculus Quest to take off before they go ahead and produce the Yi Horizon. We don't know for sure. Then of course you have the wild card, Insta360, popping out 360 cameras like rabbits. So you never know, they could just suddenly produce a new 360 camera. If I had to speculate on Insta360's next camera for consumers, they might be jumping on that VR 180/360 bandwagon. On the other hand, VR 180 hasn't been super hot, so it's not like there's any urgency for Insta360 to jump into this category. Now, one category that we may have been waiting for that I haven't discussed is the best camera for virtual tours. And that's because it's going to be an entire video by itself. I'm working on it, and it's going to be a great video with cameras that you haven't seen before, like the Ultracker Aleta S2, which has 66 megapixels. I'm going to pit it against the GoPro Fusion, Insta360 and other consumer cameras, but also I will be including the Insta360 Pro and Pro 2, so you can see how well they compare against consumer 360 cameras. Don't miss it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in 360.